Thank you. My name's Jim Musrode. I'm from Google in Sydney. I actually grew up in Perth, and I've been in Sydney for about 7 years. So it's great to actually address the Sydney audience of ACS. I'm going to try and answer some questions during the talk, so put your hand up and wave at me, and I will answer questions as we go and at the end. But afterwards, email me, jimo@google.com, and I'd be happy to answer any questions about Google, about working as a programmer, about what it's like in the IT industry, generally university, career, the whole works. So I'm going to intersperse these with some photos of the parts of Google that I really like. And so I work in the operations side of Google as a programmer. This is what our data centers look like. You may not have ever thought what is, your data's in the cloud, Google search and stuff like that. But really Google is just these big rooms full of computers. Each one of those little lines on each one of those racks is a computer. And Google puts rooms and rooms of these together and buildings after buildings after building across the whole world. Just building these things is an incredible project that involves thousands of people. It's an interesting place. So what do we do in Google Australia? Amazingly, for every one programmer that Google employs, we employ somebody else as well for all of the other things that Google needs to do. It's a really interesting business. It has to run, it has to advertise, it has to market its products and services to people. Running that much software takes an awful lot of support from a large number of people. So I'm from the software team, obviously, but Google has amazing opportunities that are all a huge mix of technology and skills, spanning the entire range of different careers. Data centers. You may not have thought about data centers being more than just computers, but the actual process of keeping a data center running is more than just computers and power. We have water, we have cooling, emergency backup systems and stuff like that. Google makes it look nice and stuff like that, but it's a pretty exciting place. Working at Google is interesting. People are encouraged to do their own thing, be who they are. It's an incredibly diverse and for computer science at least, it's an incredibly diverse company to work for. Everyone has a job, thing that they work on, but we encourage everybody to branch out and look for other opportunities. And this is one of my favourite examples from several years ago. Somebody in Sydney decided that it wasn't enough what Google was doing with Google Maps. It wasn't enough what we're doing. We actually should get actively involved when things happen in the world. And so they took some time off from their day over a series of weeks, and they built what ultimately became the Google Crisis Response Team. So when big international emergencies happen, Google gets involved and uses their software to help out. This is just a neat slide of a hard drive being destroyed, but really what I wanted to talk about here is privacy. Google is a big organization that involves a lot of data from all sorts of different sources. We take this very, very seriously, whether it's little things like making sure that the hard drives are physically destroyed by a giant machine with a giant RAM, that hydraulic system, but it's a really interesting place to work when what you're trying to work on is systems that process large amounts of data, from training to processes to auditing to restrictions and logs. This is something Google takes very seriously and something I'm quite proud of about how Google handles. In Australia, we do quite a large number of things. We have something like 500 software engineers in Sydney. You probably recognise a lot of these logos. Just out of curiosity for this audience, who's written code before? Who's cool? Who's written, like, run their own web server or written some software that they use on a regular basis, something? Compiled your own kernel that you wrote yourself or something like that? Cool, okay, come talk to me afterwards. What we're looking for at Google, like everyone here should learn to code. It's not about whether or not you want to be a software engineer these days. It is, do you want to have a job that will be the sort of job that we have in 10 years' time? Every single one of my friends that I went to school with and then university with who did something in engineering or science is now a programmer in some form or another. Biochemists, engineers, mathematicians, physicists, they all write probably even more code than I do on a day-to-day basis. And that's in languages like Python. If you've done something like the NCSS challenge or any of the online coding tutorials and things like that, Python is the sort of language that comes up. And the incredible thing about Python is that it's the same language that people use professionally when they're doing real science and real engineering. at Google, as you'll see on the next slide, Python is number 2 here. It's the language that we use every day. So the skills that you're learning right now in high school are directly applicable to you as a software engineer in the future. We're increasingly entering a sort of an environment in the workplace, and I mean, I don't just mean Google here, I mean every workplace, where the people who have computer skills are differentiated from the people who don't. And I don't just mean like basic computer skills, like how to type up a document in Word or something like that. I mean programming, and people who can program can do things 10 times faster. People who are, my sister's a lawyer, and she gives this great example of when she was an article clerk, she had to compare documents. So they was going through revisions of documents. And the fact that she had to go through by hand with a red pen and compare revisions of documents is just a terrible reflection of the fact that they don't have computer software that can do that for them. My friends who are biochemists, they couldn't do what they do without programming. They would be analysing, gigabytes of base pairs. You can't do that by hand. You must be a programmer to do that. So the important lesson here is, like, I'm excited to stand here as a representative of Google, but really what I'm excited about is a representative of the computer industry, the IT industry as a programmer. Increasingly, things like electronics, basic knowledge of how electronics works is a really fundamental skill in our society. How to understand why things are broken and fix them and repair them. This set of logos of the things that we work on in Sydney, if I was showing that for Google worldwide, it wouldn't fit on this slide. It would be 20 more slides. We have people who work on robots, people who work on human-like artificial intelligence. I'm kind of a little bit nervous if those two teams ever meet, what will happen next. But all of these products, we have, I guarantee you, if you think you know what Google does, there is 10 times more things that Google do. There are things that Google does that I have no idea about, and Google is an incredibly open company internally. It's one of my favorite things about Google is that every employee gets to find out what everybody else is working on. We can read their code, we can read their design docs and things like that. Who wants to be an intern at Google? Are people in this audience interested? Is that where your careers are heading? I don't really need to talk to you. Like, you know where you're going. But I'm going to talk a little bit more about internships and what the opportunities available to you are later in this talk. More servers. Everything looks better with blue LEDs, apparently. So, as well as software engineering, we have a really interesting team in Sydney and around the world called the Enterprise team. And their job is to work with businesses to make their technology more effective, quite often using Google technology to do so. But this is a really interesting role, because there's probably a lot of people in this room who think, I really like computers, I'm good at computers, but I don't want to be a programmer. And that's totally fine, because you might find it interesting, whatever, but it's not what you want to do every day. Me, I'm the opposite. It's what I want to do all day, it's what I want to do when I get home, on the weekends and stuff like that. But there are people who are very, very useful to Google and very, very useful to the industry, who keep everything working and making the technology work effectively. And Google Sydney has a big team that do this. An evolution in servers. This is one of our, on the left here is one of our very first racks. You can see, hard to see in the picture, it's made of corkboard that holds the different layers together. They caught fire a bit later. Nowadays we do things a lot more organized. I'm from the site reliability team at Google. Our job is we're software engineers, but we keep Google working rather than building new things for Google. It's kind of a weird job. I don't really know what I'm going to be doing from one day to the next. It's kind of where a jack of all trades. Some computing needs to be done. We're not really sure what. It might be programming, might be configuration, might be diagnosing, debugging, deployment, that sort of stuff. Google is entirely based on Linux. Linux is an amazing thing that you can. It's incredible in this industry that world-class software like Linux, absolutely. There's just almost no other options when it comes to deploying something like Google, and it's free. And it's not just free, but you can work on it in your spare time, and you can contribute to it. Google contributes to it. What an amazing ecosystem to work in. Like, if you compare this to other industries where everything is, you buy something from a vendor and you just get what you get given. You get maybe you get a manual. With Linux, you get everything. You can fix it if you want to. You can change it if you want to. And our team makes an incredibly large amount of value of that. Gets an incredible amount of value from that. Cloud platform. Google couple of years ago said, well, we've built all this amazing infrastructure for us to use, why not make it available for everyone else to use? So my goal with this slide is to remind you that if you're building a project, if you're doing a university assignment or something like that, don't run your own servers, don't run your own databases. Get Google to do all that for you. Concentrate on the things that are useful to you. So, if you've got the next great idea for an online website or some sort of Internet of Things thing, focus on the thing that's actually important to you. Let Google handle the other boring bits like deploying servers and stuff like that. We work on this in Sydney. It's pretty exciting. So this is an example of a building, and then we make lots and lots of buildings. So lots and lots of servers. So there are incredible opportunities here. You've seen the video. You know this. It's staggering to think what it will look like in 10 years' time, 20 years' time. This Internet of Things thing, I'm not really quite clear what the Internet of Things is. I think I'm excited by it. I'll tell you what, I saw as I walked over to pick up this, there was a Raspberry Pi on the table here. This is a computer. It is as powerful as the computer that I learnt to program on, but it's more powerful than the computer I learnt to program on. It has more RAM, it has more CPU power, and you can buy one of those, maybe not that exact model, but a very similar model, for $5. It's this big, it runs Linux, and you can program it to do whatever you like. Put a Wi-Fi on it, you put Bluetooth on it. You can build a device that does anything. You're literally only stopped by the time you have available to write code for it. This is not a, I know people who have just a drawer of them ready to go just for the next project, don't even have to wait to go and buy one. They just have it ready to go for their projects. We're in an amazing time of this stuff being so easy to do. My job is my hobby. I go to work, I keep Google running for my 8-hour day or whatever, and then I go home and I work on I do for my hobby what my job is. On the weekend I really like sailing, but the thing that I like doing on sailing boats is fixing the electronics and keeping the software systems running. On a race boat, that's a really big part of how the boat operates. You'd be surprised when you look around just how many amazing opportunities there are. And Google is a people place. Everything only works because the people are great. It's my favorite part of my job is the people I work with, the lunchtime conversations, the fact that I sit down at lunch yesterday and I had some weird question about how LED bulbs work. Does everyone know how a white LED works? It's actually a blue LED with a phosphor, and it's this crazy interesting process, and how do you actually get a smooth color response and stuff like that? Somebody who was sitting across from me happened to be like the local office expert in how LED bulbs work, and he just pipes up and starts talking and whatever. This is a really great thing to have when you hang around with smart people. You learn interesting things from smart people. So as students, internships, this is an amazing opportunity. Google offers 8-week-long internships over the summer in Australia, and they're open to university students through every year of their degree. Unlike other internships, this is you come in as a software engineer and you build an actual piece of software for Google. Many interns go home afterwards and they can show their family and friends that button that you can click on that thing that does this thing, or that feature, or that whatever. I made that happen. That was what I did in my internship. There's no photocopying and making coffee and stuff like that. Well, there's plenty of coffee if you want it, but it's you are a real software engineer for 8 weeks, and you get paid for it as well, which is pretty cool. The Anita Borg Scholarship. This is really important. In memory of the late Dr. Anita Borg, Google set up a memorial. The Anita Borg Institute, but Google sets up a scholarship. And this is a scholarship for women studying computer science. And the outcome is that you could win a scholarship for your degree, but also the runner-ups get to come on an amazing trip to Google, both in Sydney and to another office somewhere in APAC, and a multi-day retreat where you meet a lot of other really interesting people in similar situation to you, and it's a great networking opportunity and stuff like that. To all the women studying computer science in this room, or interested in studying computer science in this room, I highly recommend checking this out. And of course, we hire for graduates and people in industry already. Google.com/students has all the details. I will talk a little bit about the interview process, because that's kind of a thing that we have a bit of a reputation for. The interview process is tough. It's a couple of phone interviews followed by a day of on-site interviews. The trick to remember, and this is something you can sort of put in the back of your mind now and think about for your interviews that you might do in a few years' time, is they're testing you on what you learned in university. So the skills, we're not just trying to throw random things at you and hope and you should freak out because you might just get unlucky. No, we're looking for real skills that real computer scientists would have learned in their degree. So this reputation that's floating around there about how many golf balls fit in a school bus or why a manhole covers round, none of that. There's nothing like that. There's a lot of really false stuff out there about Google interviews. The questions are, how does a hash table work? And for the people in the room who know what a hash table is, that's something that you learn in first year computer science. How would you implement this algorithm? How does something work? How would you diagnose some particular problem with a computer and things like that? These are things you can practice. So some skills to work on while you're studying is try explaining these concepts to your friends. When you learn something in university, get together with your friends studying the same content and practice interviewing each other on these things. You'll be set for a degree for when you go for jobs later, whether it's Google or anywhere else. Technical communication is the skill that we're looking for here. Cool, I've got a few minutes. Any questions? Yeah. Microphone coming.
Who's Anita Borg?
Anita Borg was a computer scientist who worked with a lot of the original early employees of Google at Digital Equipment. In her memory, they set up a scholarship, and there's the Anita Borg Institute, whose main ambition is furthering the cause of women studying computer science and working in the industry. Anita Borg was a computer scientist who worked with a lot of Google people. Yep. Yeah, question at the back there.
For the Google crisis response team, what's involved with the technology and things like that?
Yeah, great question. So Google sort of says, well, we have all this amazing infrastructure that we use to build services like Gmail and search and stuff like that. So when it came to crisis response, one of the big things here was maps. So building real-time maps that showed where the crisis was, I guess. So a great example is bushfires. When you have a bushfire, one of the big problems is road closures. And so if you're trying to get somewhere away from something, perhaps, then it's very important for you to know in real time where the road closures are. So Google Maps plus the technology to put real-time data on maps was a big part of that. Yeah. Question down here. Oh yeah, so standing up. Yep.
So how much do you get paid?
That's a tough one. Google pays very competitive salaries. I'll answer this question a bit more generally. The IT industry does pay well. It's for what we do, which is to sit in a chair all day and play with our computers. It's pretty good. I will say that there is a huge variation between different companies and different roles, but yeah, Google certainly looks after us. Yeah.
Did you intern for Google before you started working?
Yeah, no, I didn't. So I worked in Perth in the oil and gas industry for several years before Google, and I got completely out of nowhere. I entered a competition. This is the kind of thing. Opportunities come when you go looking for them, but sometimes, which is the advice that I should be giving you, but sometimes you get lucky. And I found out about this competition that Google was running that ultimately was a hiring exercise, but I thought it was just a cool way to win a T-shirt. And at the end of that, I got a phone call and asked if I wanted an interview. But one last question.
What is the main things that you've worked on at Google?
Yeah, okay. Okay, I'm going to get hooked off the stage in a second. But I've worked on mostly on infrastructure. So I run the system that stores all of the information that Google needs to store on your behalf. So if you tell Google you'd like to do all your searches in Japanese, we remember that for you. If you add someone to your address book, if you store something in an attachment in Gmail, if you upload a photo to Photos or to YouTube or something like that, I work on the systems that store all of that data. So yeah, megabytes, gigabytes, terabytes, petabytes, exabytes. And these are the exabytes is the sort of numbers that we deal with in our team. Yeah. All right, I got to go. I'm sorry. Jim@google.com. Otherwise, come and find me in the break afterwards, and I would be happy to answer any questions. Thank you very much.